did you come to write the book?
Well, I started it 20 years ago, and it was really, I had been married to my now husband for a few years, and he saw all these like legal pads and journals and stuff, and he was like, what is all this, and I said, oh yeah, I was thinking about writing a book, and I've just been writing little essays or whatever. And he said, why don't you do something with it? So I live in LA, so I am looking through this little catalog for the UCLA extension, and there's a class called How to Write a Memoir. So it was a weekend class, and I went and took it. And so I started writing it that way, which, if any of your listeners are inspired to write about themselves, one of the first things she says is make a list of 12 of the most dramatic things that happened in your life, because nobody wants to hear the boring crap, right? That's so I did all this, and I started writing, and I don't know, I'd pick it up, put it down. About 5 years ago, I pulled it out and I wrote a one-woman show, and I performed that around LA. In fact, my final performance was February, just before we shut down in March for COVID. And I had done it in 5 theaters, 5 performances in 3 theaters, sold out houses. One of the theaters held 100 people. And I sold that out 3 times, and some others. And yeah, so that was called Evolution of a Pisces Baby Boomer. And in that one-woman show, I played a couple of characters called, which, if the Pisces astrological symbol is the 2 fish swimming in opposite directions. So I had Sam, which was like a salmon swimming upstream, always going against the tide. And then I had Flo, who just goes with the flow. And yeah, so I had those characters. So those characters are not in the book. But I don't know, I guess about 1.5 years ago, I suddenly started realizing almost every week, somebody I knew was either diagnosed with a critical illness or dying. And I thought, really, are you going to die with your book in a box under your bed, or are you going to get it out and do something with it? So I pulled it out, finished it, self-published it, and now I'm trying to get 13 more reviews, because supposedly if you get 100 reviews on Amazon, then they start promoting your book. I'm at 87, folks.
Okay, we gotta get that book.
Hear that, everybody? Let's get out there and start reviewing it after you buy it.
Yes.
Yes, you can buy it everywhere. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble. If you've got a library card, you can get it. You can listen to the audiobook for free. And in the book, I talk about this happened. I wrote a song about it. Here are some of the lyrics. In the audiobook, this happened. I wrote a song about it, and a recording of my band playing that song comes in, and you hear, a few measures.
Cool.
It's really cool.
Very cool.
Super fun.
Can we talk comedy?
Okay, sure.
Are there any comedians or actors who have particularly influenced you in your comedy aspirations? And I did watch your performance at the Improv under a different last name. Was it Martin?
It was, yes. That was from The Husband. That was Marriage Number 1. So
loved your energy.
Thank you. Well, and
that you had 2 men that couldn't mow the lawn.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
without going into the setup.
Right. Yes.
So what comedians influenced you?
Well, I have to say, having learned as much as I have about Lenny Bruce, I certainly am influenced by him now, but I didn't know him as when I was coming up. I had all the albums, I had the who's the guy that just died last year? Bob Newhart. I had his albums, and Bill Cosby, back before we knew what a sicko he is. And Richard Pryor. Those were really the kinds of comedians that I was drawn to. I enjoyed Phyllis Diller's brazenness, but I didn't love her as a comic so much. I think I love the humorous spirit of Carol Burnett. She'd probably have to be the top of my list.
My fantasy is to meet her somewhere here in Santa Barbara, but she's 91 and she's fairly fragile, but she's already in a show right now and was up for an award in the past year, and she's unbelievable.
Isn't that wild?
And she's still sharp.
I've met her daughter, and yeah, we are friends. So yeah, but it's amazing. Yes, these folks that are so resilient and have survived so much.
And she grew up in LA.
She did indeed. Right. Yeah.
She was on the Jimmy Kimmel show, and she goes, I went to high school a block from here.
I love it. Yeah, I listened to her audiobook. I'm a big fan of listening to memoirs of folks who I admire and have listened to a lot. So
did you like The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson?
I did. Yeah, it's a staple of my
yesterday I rediscovered that it's on Amazon.
Wow.
And I caught his opening monologue, and 45 years later, he's clean and he's just as funny.
Exactly.
And he had on Flip Wilson and George Carlin and Anne Margaret for that one show as guests. And I'm thinking, I'm probably going to get lost on Amazon now.
Well, I have to say, George Carlin is probably the top of my list in terms of the comedy that is socially relevant today as much as it was when it was fresh. And yeah, I have always been a fan of George Carlin.
Yeah, I don't think there is another George Carlin out there today. I remember I saw him live. I've seen Jay Leno, and I've seen Rodney Dangerfield live.
That's amazing.
But Joyce, I haven't seen you live on stage. Not yet. But
not yet.
What does the future hold for Joyce Fidler?
Well, who knows? Because I just had a management change this week. So my manager left the prior manager who I had signed with and started her own agency and took me along. And so who knows? I have had the biggest auditions of my life in the last year. I've not booked them, but to even be called in for something that was, I can't tell you what it is, but it would have been life-changing. And anytime as an actor, you never know what is going to be that life-changing role. I had an audition for a commercial 2 days ago. It was an in-person audition for a huge casting director. If I were to book that, it again could be life-changing because it would mean those folks would probably reach back to me repeatedly because that's sort of the way it goes. But here's the other thing. I am focused on my recovery. That's the thing I do on a daily basis. I once heard Eric Clapton, who's very vocal about being sober. Mm-hmm. I once heard him say that he plays guitar between meetings. He's a guy that plays guitar between meetings. And I thought, well, if that can be his story, then if I can have that attitude about all the things I attempt, then they lose their urgency, if that makes any sense. So I can go to that audition a couple days ago and I'm not nervous and I'm excited, but I'm not anxious and it's not life or death for me. If I book it, I would be elated. But if I don't, the audition is the thing I did between meetings.
Don't be attached to the outcome.
Right. Precisely.
And there's Mark Lomas putting his hand up. That means he has a question.
2 more questions, Joyce. Finish your drink.
I'm ready.
If you could write a letter to your younger self, what advice would you give her?
Geez. Maybe go easy on the weed.
All right.
I was a daily pot smoker for 20 years and I loved it, but it certainly impacted my life in a lot of negative ways. So yeah, maybe.
Last question.
Well, yeah, Mark.
With your background in music, if you had a theme song, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. It's so corny, but it would have to be My Way.
Oh.
Not corny.
I have not followed the rule book on most of the things I've done in my life. When I moved to LA, I was coming out here to be an actor, but I had a health problem right away, and it impacted my appearance. So it was Graves' disease. But so I was told, suit up and show up and do whatever is put in front of you. So I ended up becoming a special ed teacher. I had no background in that. I had to go back and get a teaching credential in special ed, but I did it, and it was so fulfilling. The day those Twin Towers were hit,
oh boy,
to be going to a classroom of special needs high school students who didn't understand and who, were looking to me for comfort and guidance. And I thought to myself, if I were a working actor today, would I have the same level of fulfillment? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But just I've done sort of many, many outrageous things, including having my boyfriend live with me for the last 6 years of the first marriage. That really wasn't in the rule book by anybody's measure.
But the statute of limitations is up on that.
I don't know about that. Yes, I think it is. Mm-hmm. And, I have peaceful and serene relationships with everyone in my life who I harmed, and I was able to be there for my parents as they aged and were failing. I moved them from all my craziness, by the way, was happening in the Midwest. It's a backwards story. The story usually is, somebody is in LA raising hell, they move to the Midwest and they get their life together. I raised hell in the Midwest and came out to LA and got sober. Who does that? That's backwards.
Wow.
It's a beautiful story, Joyce.
Thanks.
It's a great life you're living.
I'm pretty happy with it. I'm right now, I'm at my daughter's home, and we're here to, let the HVAC people in to inspect her system, and we're babysitting our granddaughter who's 11. And
beautiful.
That's because all is forgiven for what a crappy mom I was.
Oh,
but you're a great grandma. I have no fear of becoming a grandfather because I found out that my sons cannot impregnate anybody by playing video games. So,
oh man,
yeah,
that's such a bummer.
I know, it's sad. It is sad. Okay,
Joyce, if you take on another project, we'd love to hear back from you, and we would love to promote you.
Woo! I will take you up on it. Thank you so much, James.
You have just been this is too corny because it's punished, but you've been a total joy this morning.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
Well, thank you for coming on our show. Jim miraculously behaved himself and was incredibly insightful today, which shocked me, but you are just like the best guest. Thank you so much for doing this.
I so appreciate you. Take care.
all right, see you guys. Thank you very much.
All righty.